The playground was nearly empty. Rusted swings creaked in the cool dusk breeze, the chains rattling against steel frames like faint whispers. A small girl sat alone. Her name was Clara Voss, 8 years old, daughter of the most powerful man in the city. But in this moment, she wasn't the image of wealth or privilege. Her expensive dress clung damp against her knees from the dew on the swings. Her shoes, polished and white, were smudged with dirt. She hadn't moved in over an hour. She stared at the ground, silent. Across the street, headlights flickered. A battered sedan pulled up, coughing smoke from the exhaust. The driver stepped out, tall, lean, shoulders heavy with fatigue. Ethan, ale 34, wore the green-grey overalls of a janitor. His hands were rough, skin cracked from bleach and chemicals, but his eyes softened as he looked back into the car. "Come on, champ," he said. A boy's head popped out of the back seat, backpack dangling from his shoulder. Noah Hale, 7, smiled despite the dark circles under his eyes. His energy came in bursts now. Some days he ran ahead of his father, other days he dragged his feet. Tonight he hopped out, coughing once into his sleeve before chasing toward the playground. 5 minutes, all right? Ethan called. Then homework. 10! Noah bargained. 7, Ethan said, a smile tugging his tired face. Deal. Noah sprinted toward the swings, then froze. His sneakers crunched the gravel beneath the fading orange streetlight as he saw Clara. She didn't move. "Hi," Noah said cautiously. "I'm Noah. What's your name?" Clara's fingers tightened on the chains of the swing. She tilted her head slightly but said nothing. "Hey." Noah tried again, gentler. "You like swings?" She glanced at him, quick, frightened, then back to the ground. Ethan, walking closer now, noticed the exchange, his brow furrowed. He'd cleaned the executive floor often enough to recognize the girl's face from framed photographs. Clara Voss, the CEO's daughter. What was she doing here? Alone? "Noah," Ethan said carefully, "don't bother her." "I'm not bothering," Noah insisted, climbing onto the swing beside Clara. "She's just quiet." Clara's grip loosened, then tightened again. She shifted slightly away. Her lips parted as though she wanted to speak, but no sound came. Then, as Noah leaned closer, she flinched, hard, like someone had raised a hand to her. Ethan froze. That wasn't shyness. That was fear. For a moment, silence blanketed the playground. Dog barked in the distance. A car door slammed somewhere down the street. But between the swings, only the rattle of chains filled the air. Ethan crouched, lowering his voice so it wouldn't carry. "Hey," he said softly. "You all right?" Clara didn't look at him. She stared at the gravel, motionless. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to," Ethan added. "Just, are you okay being here?" Her fingers curled tighter. No answer. Noah tilted his head, puzzled. "Dad, she's not saying anything." Ethan gave his son a quiet look, the kind that told him to back off just a little. Noah obeyed, but his eyes lingered with concern. The sun slipped lower. The streetlights buzzed, flickering on one by one. Ethan checked his watch. Almost 7. He should take Noah home. Dinner, homework, the whole routine. But something in. Clara's silence pinned him there. She wasn't just a quiet child. She looked haunted. Ethan tried again, softer. "Clara, right?" For the first time, she raised her head. Her eyes met his, wide, dark, and full of something he recognized. Too well, unspoken pain, Ethan swallowed. The girl's father, Alexander Voss, was notorious. Ruthless CEO, controlling, untouchable. People whispered about him in break rooms, a man who built empires and buried enemies. And now his daughter sat alone in a public playground, mute and trembling. Noah, oblivious to the weight of it, swung gently beside Clara. "You don't have to be scared," he whispered to her. "My dad says I talk too much, so if you don't want to talk, that's okay. I'll talk for both of us." For a split second, Clara's lips twitched. Not quite a smile, more like the memory of one. Then it was gone. She turned away, staring at the shadows stretching across the slide. Ethan straightened, watching. His instinct screamed something was wrong, but he also knew better than to pry too hard, not with the daughter of his boss. He reached out, resting a hand gently on Noah's shoulder. "Time to go, champ." "Already?" "Yeah, we'll come. Back tomorrow." Noah sighed, hopping off the swing. He gave Clara a small wave. "Bye. See you tomorrow." Clara blinked, but said nothing. Noah jogged toward the car. Ethan hesitated. He looked back one last time. Clara was still on the swing, staring into nothing, her lips pressed tight as though holding back words that could shatter everything. Sometimes silence holds the loudest secrets, and sometimes it takes an ordinary man in the most ordinary place to hear them. Ethan Hale didn't know it yet, but his compassion, his choice to listen, would unravel an empire. Ethan walked Noah to the car, but the unease clung to him like smoke. He started the engine. In the rearview mirror, Clara was still there, still silent, still alone, and for reasons he couldn't explain, Ethan knew her silence wasn't just grief, it was warning. As the car pulled away, a black SUV rolled slowly up to the curb near the playground. Tinted windows, engine humming. Clara didn't turn. Her head, she just kept swinging, but Ethan saw it in his mirror, and his stomach dropped. Why would a child of power be left alone in the dark? Unless the people watching her wanted it that way. The morning light spilled across the cracked blinds of Ethan's apartment. He stood at the stove, frying 2 eggs in a pan that had seen better years. The smell of coffee mixed with the faint hum of the city outside. At the small kitchen table, Noah scribbled on a worksheet, coughing into his sleeve between math problems. Ethan glanced over, his chest tightening at the sound. "You all right, champ?" "Yeah," Noah muttered. "Just dust." Ethan didn't argue. He knew it wasn't dust. The doctors had been clear. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The treatments had slowed it, but the bills were piling higher than his paycheck could ever cover. He set the plate down in front of his son, trying to smile. "Fuel up. Big day at school." Noah grinned faintly. "And you? Big day cleaning toilets." Ethan chuckled. "Someone's got to keep that shiny tower standing." But as he reached for his coffee, the image of Clara on the swing last night burned into his mind. Silent, haunted, alone. Something about her still gnawed at him. Later that morning, Ethan swiped his ID card at the employee entrance of Voss Industries. The skyscraper loomed above the skyline, glass and steel reflecting the clouds. Inside, marble floors gleamed, and men in suits moved like clockwork soldiers. Ethan pushed his cart of cleaning supplies through the lobby, blending into the background as usual. He caught sight of Clara. She was walking hand in hand with a woman in her 40s. The woman had soft features, brown hair tied neatly, and the tired kindness of someone who carried too much. Helen Ward, Clara's caretaker. "Morning, sweetheart," Helen whispered to Clara. "Let's get you to class." Clara didn't respond. Her gaze was fixed on the floor. Ethan hesitated, then gave Helen a nod as he passed. Helen gave the faintest smile back, but her eyes carried something unspoken, something worried. By noon, Ethan was on the top floors, mopping the polished hallway outside the executive boardroom. The intercom buzzed. "Ethan Hale. Report to the CEO's office." His chest tightened. The CEO never summoned janitors. The elevator carried him to the top. The doors slid open with a soft chime, revealing a corridor of dark wood and glass. At the end stood double doors carved with the Voss insignia, a silver falcon. 2 guards in black suits flanked the doors. One opened them without a word. Inside, the office was more throne room than workplace. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, A desk the size of a dining table gleamed under the lights, and behind it sat Alexander Voss. He was 52, sharp suit, silver hair combed back, eyes like cold steel. A man who had built empires on fear as much as finance. He didn't stand. He didn't smile. "Mr. Hale," he said smoothly, his voice carrying the weight of command. "Come in." Ethan stepped forward cautiously. Voss steepled his fingers. "You were at the playground last night. It wasn't a question." "Yes, sir, with my son." "And you saw my daughter?" Ethan hesitated. "She was on the swing." Voss's eyes narrowed. "Did she speak to you?" "No, sir." A beat of silence. Then Voss leaned forward. "Good. You will forget it. You will never mention what you saw. Not to your son, not to anyone. Am I understood?" Ethan's throat tightened. "Sir, I don't am. I understood." The words sliced the air like knives. Ethan nodded slowly. "Yes, sir." Voss leaned back, satisfied. "You are a janitor. You clean floors. You do not concern yourself with my family, or with matters you cannot begin to comprehend." Ethan swallowed hard, fighting the urge to argue. "Yes, sir." Dismissed. As Ethan turned to leave, he noticed something. Security cameras, small, barely visible, lined the corners of the office. Not just the office, the hallway outside, the elevators, and on the control panel near the desk, a monitor briefly flickered, showing angles deep below the tower. Restricted basement levels. Why would cameras be watching sealed doors in the basement? Ethan returned to his cart, his hands trembling. That's when Helen appeared, Clara trailing silently beside her. She gave Ethan a quick glance, then subtly brushed past him. As she did, something slipped into his hand, a folded piece of paper. Ethan stuffed it into his pocket before anyone noticed. He pushed his cart into a maintenance closet and shut the door. His hands shook as he unfolded the note. The handwriting was hurried, desperate. She doesn't speak because she knows. Ethan stared at the words, his heart pounding. Knows what? His pulse raced as he folded the note again, stuffing it deep into his pocket. When he opened the door, the hallway was empty. Helen and Clara were gone, but the message burned in his mind. Clara wasn't silent by choice. She was silent because she carried a secret, and secrets inside Voss Industries could be deadly. The rest of Ethan's shift passed in a blur. He scrubbed, polished, and vacuumed, but his thoughts spun. Voss's warning, the cameras in the basement, Helen's note. By the time he picked up Noah from school, dusk had fallen. They walked home through the city streets. Noah chatted about a science project, his voice bright despite the cough that lingered. Ethan forced himself to listen, nodding, smiling, but his mind kept drifting back. Finally, Noah asked, "Dad, you okay?" Ethan looked down at his son, hesitating. "Yeah, just tired," Noah frowned. "Is it about that girl, the one from the swings?" Ethan froze. "What do you mean? You keep thinking about her," Noah said simply. "I can tell," Ethan exhaled slowly. His son was too perceptive. She's got stuff going on," Ethan admitted. "Stuff that's not our business." Noah kicked a pebble along the sidewalk. "But what if she needs help?" Ethan stopped walking. The question lingered in the night air. What if she did? Back in his apartment, Ethan tucked Noah into bed. The boy's breathing slowed, steady. Ethan lingered by the doorway, watching. His son, his whole world, fragile and brave at once. Then he pulled the note from his pocket again. She doesn't speak because she knows. Ethan stared at the words until his hands clenched. Whatever Clara knew, it was something her father didn't want spoken. And if Alexander Voss was desperate to silence his own daughter, Ethan whispered into the empty apartment. What does she know? Ethan Hale had spent his life cleaning up other people's messes, but some messes were too big to mop away. Clara Voss's silence was no accident. It was protection, a warning. And soon, Ethan would learn. When a child knows too much, entire empires tremble. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and sorrow. White walls, flickering lights, the soft hiss of machines. Ethan sat beside his son's bed, trying to stay strong. Noah's small hand rested on his, skin pale against his father's calloused fingers. The doctor adjusted his glasses. His voice was gentle, but the words hit like a hammer. We've confirmed it. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The treatment is aggressive and costly. Ethan's throat tightened. Costly how? The doctor hesitated. Chemotherapy, possible bone marrow transplant. Clinical trials, if we can find eligibility. We're looking at several $100,000. Ethan's chest hollowed. That was more than he'd make in a lifetime scrubbing floors. He forced his voice steady. What happens if I can't pay? The doctor's expression softened, pitying. Then the disease will progress. Fast. Noah stirred. Dad? Ethan squeezed his hand quickly, plastering on a smile. Yeah, champ. I'm hungry. Ethan swallowed the lump in his throat. Then we'll get you something better than hospital food. The doctor gave a quiet nod and left. Ethan bent over, pressing his forehead to his son's. Silent tears burned his eyes. I can't lose him. I won't. 2 days later, Ethan was back at work, pushing his cart down the silent hallways of Voss Industries. His body moved automatically, mop swishing across marble, but his mind was spinning. Bills, treatment, the impossible math of survival. As he passed the executive conference room, muffled voices drifted through the crack of the door. He paused, instinctively stilling. The trials are unstable, one voice hissed. Half the subjects didn't survive the second phase. Another voice replied, lower. Victor assures us refinement is coming. With military funding, failures will be acceptable. Ethan's pulse quickened. Trials, subjects, he leaned closer. Untraceable. The lower levels are sealed, no leaks. The janitors don't have clearance anyway. Ethan stepped back quickly, heart pounding. He pushed his cart away before the door opened. Behind him, the voices faded, but the words stuck. Trials, subjects, military funding. Later that night, Ethan emptied trash bins on the 27th floor. A man in a white lab coat passed him. Tall, dark hair streaked with grey, eyes sharp as blades behind rimless glasses. Dr. Victor Cade. Whispers followed him through the building. Genius, clinical mastermind, but ruthless. People said he didn't see patients as people, only numbers on a chart. Victor paused, glancing at Ethan as though he were a speck of dust. Then he moved on, a keycard swinging at his chest. The rumor was true. Cade ran the restricted labs in the basement, and if Ethan's ears hadn't betrayed him, those labs weren't about curing. The next afternoon, Ethan picked Noah up from school. His son seemed brighter that day, despite the treatments. He chatted about a new friend. She sits by herself a lot, but today I sat next to her. We drew together. Who? Ethan asked absently, eyes on traffic. Clara. Ethan's grip on the wheel tightened. When they reached the playground, Clara was there again, on the swing, silent. Noah ran to her, backpack bouncing. Hi, Clara, I brought the crayons. She blinked, watching him carefully, then gave the smallest nod. They sat on the ground, spreading paper across the gravel. Clara drew quickly, hands moving like she was racing time. Ethan watched from the bench, torn. Should he let this continue? Was it dangerous? Noah leaned toward Clara. You can tell me anything, you know. My dad says secrets make you heavy. Clara's Greyon paused, her lips parted. For the first time sound emerged, one word, barely a whisper, basement. Noah froze, his eyes widened. What? Clara's hand shook. She looked around, fear flashing across her face. Then she went silent again, retreating into her shell. Ethan stood abruptly, crossing to them. Time to go, Noah. But Dad, now Noah stuffed the crayons back into his bag, glancing at Clara with worry. Ethan took his son's hand firmly, leading him toward the car. That night, after Noah was asleep, Ethan sat at the kitchen table, staring at the cheap lamp flickering above. The note from Helen lay beside him. She doesn't speak because she knows, and now Clara had spoken. One word, basement. Ethan rubbed his temples, the restricted levels. The whispers of human trials, the cameras, Dr. Cade. Whatever secret this girl carried, it was buried beneath Voss Industries. And somehow, his son's survival was colliding with it. He whispered into the empty room. What's in the basement? For years, Ethan Hale had lived invisible, a ghost with a mop. But secrets were never safe for long, not from the eyes of children, not from the desperation of a father. Clara Voss had broken her silence, and the word she chose was a door Ethan could no longer ignore. The elevator hummed softly as it descended, numbers glowing red in sequence. Ethan's badge only worked down to level 5, but tonight he rode with a cart stacked with trash bags, an excuse, a cover. When the doors opened, he stepped into a corridor that smelled faintly of bleach and iron. The walls were sterile white, the air colder. Cameras blinked from the corners. He moved quickly, emptying bins into his cart. His eyes caught the edges of shredded paper near a disposal chute. He knelt, pretending to tie his boot, and slid a piece into his pocket. A half logo, a word, Seraphim. He pushed the cart farther down toward a door marked Restricted Access. The glass reader blinked red at his badge. He lingered, studying it, until footsteps echoed. Lose something, Hale? The voice was clipped, amused. Victor Cade. The scientist stopped a few feet away, eyes glinting under the harsh light. Ethan forced a laugh. Just finishing the rounds. Victor's smile was thin. Then finish them upstairs. He adjusted his cufflinks. Down here we handle things too delicate for mop water. Their eyes locked for one tense beat. Then Victor brushed past, sliding his card, disappearing into the restricted lab. The door hissed shut. Ethan exhaled, pushing his cart away, his pocket heavier with shredded secrets. The cafeteria the next day buzzed with executives and staff, grabbing late lunches. Ethan sat alone at the edge, sipping burnt coffee. His son's hospital bills burned in his pocket. A tray clattered down across from him. A young woman with dark hair tied back, cafeteria aprons smudged with sauce. She leaned in, eyes sharp, too sharp for a food worker. You were on level 7 last night. Ethan froze. Excuse me? She smiled without warmth. Relax, I'm not security. Name's Maya. She extended her hand. He didn't take it. What do you want? Same thing you do. Answers. Her voice lowered. Project Seraphim. You've heard of it? The word made his chest tighten. She studied him. I've been digging into Voss Industries for months. Black budgets, missing employees, clinical trials with no FDA oversight. All tied to Seraphim. Ethan shifted. Why are you telling me? Because you're already involved. And you don't hide fear well. She smirked. Single dad, janitor pay. You're not a company man. That makes you useful. He bristled. Stay away from me. But as he stood to leave, she added, Your kid's sick, isn't he? He spun, his fists clenched. What did you say? Her voice softened. I've seen the medical fund lists. Employees petitioning for assistance. Your son's name is there. I'm not your enemy, Ethan. But the people upstairs. They'll trade his life for a data point. Ethan stared, breath ragged, then walked. Out before she could say more. That night, the shredded scraps spread across Ethan's kitchen table. He pieced them together carefully, like solving a jigsaw puzzle. Words emerged. Seraphim trial, 42A. Unexpected hemorrhages in pediatric subjects, potential dual-use applications classified under DOD authority. His stomach lurched. Pediatric subjects. Children. Noah coughed in his sleep from the other room. Ethan's hands shook. He whispered to himself, God, What are they doing down there? The knock came near midnight. Firm, deliberate. Ethan opened the door to find a man in a tailored suit, broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, with eyes like steel traps. Ethan Hale. Yes. The man stepped inside uninvited, scanning the apartment. Name's Rivers, head of security. His tone was casual, but his presence filled the room. We've noticed your curiosity. Ethan stiffened. I don't know what you're talking about. Rivers smirked. See, that's funny, because cameras show you lingering around places you don't belong, and you've been talking with one of our less loyal cafeteria girls. Maya. Rivers stepped closer, lowering his voice. I'll be plain, you've got a sick boy, don't you? Ethan's jaw clenched. Leave him out of this. That's just it. We won't, as long as you keep your head down your son's. Treatments? Covered. Benefits, expedited approvals, special access to the best oncologists money can buy. Ethan's throat tightened. And if I don't? Rivers' smile faded. His voice dropped to ice. Then the hospital bills stop clearing. Insurance vanishes. Your kid becomes another tragic case. Silence stretched. Ethan's fists trembled at his sides. You're threatening a child. I'm protecting this company. Rivers leaned close, breath hot. Remember your place, Hale. Mop the floors. Keep your mouth shut. And your boy. Lives longer. He turned and left, the door clicking softly behind him. Ethan collapsed into the chair, head in his hands. He felt the walls closing in. The next day, Clara sat with Noah in the hospital playroom. Crayons scattered across the table. Her hands moved furiously, sketching dark, jagged lines. Noah watched. Why do you always draw sad stuff? She didn't answer, just pushed the paper toward him. The drawing showed a woman crying, tears streaking under a hospital mask. Syringes pierced her arms. Figures in suits loomed above. Noah blinked. Is that your mom? Clara's hand trembled. She nodded once. Ethan, standing in the doorway, saw the picture. His breath caught Clara's mother, the CEO's wife. Dead, in mysterious circumstances. He crouched beside them. Clara, did they do this to her? She froze, eyes wide, then shook her head violently, too violently. Fear replaced any answer. Ethan didn't press, but the image burned into him. Syringes, masks, tears. Project Seraphim wasn't just data on paper, it had a face. Clara's mother's face. That night, Ethan sat in his dark apartment, phone buzzing with overdue notices. His son's shallow breathing echoed from the bedroom. Rivers' threat weighed heavy. Maya's warning dug deeper. Clara's sketch stabbed deepest of all. Stay quiet, and Noah might live. Speak up and he dies faster, he whispered into the dark. What the hell am I supposed to do? The walls of Voss Industries were lined with steel and glass, but the real prison was choice. Silence bought survival. Truth demanded sacrifice. And Ethan Hale was running out of time. The night hummed with quiet danger. Ethan stood by the service elevator, mop cart in front of him like a disguise. His eyes darted toward the cameras above. Helen Ward, Clara's caretaker, appeared at his side, her coat pulled tight. Her calm eyes carried more resolve than fear. You're sure about this? Ethan whispered. Helen nodded. If Clara's drawings are true, we can't stay silent. I've served that family for years. I know what Alexander hides. He won't. Stop! Maya slipped out from the shadows, backpack slung over her shoulder, hair tucked under a cap. Her grin was thin. Relax, janitor. You're not the first to sneak into a building, but tonight, we make it count. Ethan swallowed. His hands tightened on the cart handle. The elevator dinged. The doors slid open. Before they could step inside, a new voice cut through the hall, smooth, lilting, with a trace of Europe. Breaking into my brother's empire, now this I must see. They turned. A woman in a tailored coat, high heels clicking softly, approached with calculated grace. She was striking, her features sharp, her presence commanding. "Lena Voss," she said simply, eyes scanning each of them. "Alexander's. Sister, estranged, but blood is blood." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Ethan stiffened. "You shouldn't be here." "And yet, I am." Lena tilted her head, studying him. "Clara seems attached to you, which is unusual. She doesn't trust anyone." Her eyes narrowed. "Why you?" Ethan hesitated. Helen stepped in. "Because he listens. Something her father never did." Lena's smile returned, faint and dangerous. "Interesting. And what happens if Alexander learns of this little alliance?" Maya crossed her arms. "Depends. You going to rat us out?" Lena chuckled softly. "Not tonight. Curiosity is a stronger drug than loyalty. Show me what you find." The elevator sank lower than most employees knew existed. Ethan swiped his badge at the last checkpoint, praying it would work. Green light. The door slid open. They stepped into the belly of Voss Industries, concrete walls lined with humming pipes. Red cameras blinked above. The air was colder, metallic, like chilled blood. Ethan pushed his cart forward, trying to look routine. Maya pulled out a small device, scanning for signals. "Every step is logged," she whispered. "They're watching." Helen shivered, clutching her coat tighter. "Then we better find something worth the risk." They reached a steel door. Behind its glass panel, rows of cryogenic chambers, glowing faintly blue. Frost clung to the glass. Shapes floated inside. Ethan's breath caught. He stepped closer, peering through the mist, faces, men and women. Some he recognized from breakroom chatter, employees who had resigned. Others, unfamiliar, but their bodies told stories. V-lines, scars, gaunt faces. Helen gasped, "My God, these are people." Maya scribbled notes furiously. Subjects, human trials, no oversight. Lena's voice was colder now. "And you thought Alexander only hoarded money?" She pressed a hand against the glass. This is something else." One chamber hissed, releasing a puff of mist. Inside, a woman stirred faintly, though her eyes stayed shut. Helen clutched Ethan's arm. "She's alive!" Ethan's heart pounded. He staggered back, hand over his mouth. "This is what Clara's been hiding from," Maya whispered. "This is what her silence means." A small voice broke the air. "No, my silence means this." They spun. Clara stood in the doorway, pajama sleeves dangling past her wrists, eyes wide but steady. Helen gasped. "Clara, how did you—" Clara stepped forward, voice trembling but clear. Her first full sentence in weeks. "My mom tried to stop them." Her lips quivered. "That's why she's gone." Ethan felt the world tilt. He dropped to one knee, meeting her gaze. "Clara, they hurt your mother?" Tears pooled in her eyes. She found out about the chambers. She fought with Dad. She said it was wrong. Next morning, Clara's voice cracked. "They said she drowned, but she didn't. They killed her." The room fell into stunned silence. Maya's recorder clicked on quietly. Helen wept softly. Even Lena's perfect composure faltered. Ethan's chest burned with rage. He looked through the glass at the frozen prisoners, then back at Clara. "They'll never hurt you again," he whispered. But the cameras above whirred, red lights blinking faster, tracking every movement. And far above them in his office tower, Alexander Voss leaned forward in his chair, eyes locked on the surveillance feed. A slow, knowing smile spread across his face. The basement had revealed its ghosts, unconscious bodies, silenced voices, and a child's truth. But for Ethan Hale, discovery was only the beginning. Because in Voss Industries, secrets never stayed buried. They fought back. The ballroom glittered under golden chandeliers, polished marble floors reflecting gowns and tuxedos. Crystal glasses clinked. Laughter rippled like false music. At the center stood Alexander Voss, tall, immaculate in his tailored suit, A predator wearing charm, he raised a glass, voice booming. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we celebrate the dawn of a new age. Voss Industries has harnessed the impossible, a cure that will reshape humanity." Applause thundered. Cameras flashed. Ethan Hale lingered at the edges, wearing his janitor uniform, carrying a tray as cover. His eyes swept the crowd of elites, watching Alexander bask in their worship. His heart pounded. From beneath a linen-covered table, a small hand tugged at his sleeve. Clara. She pressed a stuffed bear into his hand, whispering, "Keep it safe." Ethan frowned, confused, until he felt the weight hidden inside the toy. A flash drive. Clara's eyes held his, pleading. Then she slipped away, vanishing into the swirl of gowns. Near the stage, a new man approached Alexander, all smiles, mid-50s. Silver hair perfectly combed, posture straight with military polish, Julian Cross, government liaison. He shook Alexander's hand warmly. "The department is impressed, Alex. But you know they'll want more than promises, military-grade applications. Field results." Alexander's smile didn't falter. "You'll have everything. The trials are yielding extraordinary results. The contracts will follow." Cross leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Keep it clean. Washington doesn't want another scandal. If word leaks..." Alexander's eyes darkened. "It won't." In the shadows, Ethan slipped into a side corridor. He ducked into a supply closet, shutting the door. He tore open the bear, retrieving the drive. His hands shook as he slid it into his pocket laptop. The screen lit, demanding a password. A folder popped open, videos, each tagged with sterile. "Codes," he clicked one. A woman strapped to a gurney, screaming, her veins bulging black as fluid pumped into her. Doctors shouted, alarms blared, another video, a man convulsing, monitors flatlining, then Clara's mother. She sat restrained, tears streaking her cheeks, whispering words muffled by her mask. Her eyes looked directly into the camera. Ethan's. Breath caught. He leaned closer, volume up. "They're lying. Stop them, please, someone." Her body convulsed. Doctors swarmed. The screen went black. Ethan staggered back, bile rising in his throat. The miracle cure was torture. A weapon. And Clara's mother had paid the price. The closet door creaked. Ethan spun, laptop slamming shut. Maya slipped in, breathless, clutching her satchel. "I saw you take it. Let me copy it. We can get this out tonight." Ethan hesitated, but her urgency was real. He handed her the drive. She plugged it into a recorder, fingers flying. "You don't understand," she whispered. "If this hits the press, Voss is finished. The government's complicit, maybe even funding it. Seraphim isn't medicine, it's a bioweapon. They're testing control." Her words sent ice down Ethan's spine. "And my son, Noah, they'll never let him live if they know I know." Maya's eyes softened. "That's why we have to hit them first." She pocketed her recorder. "I'll slip out through the service entrance. Meet me tomorrow." The door slammed open. Rivers, two guards flanked him. His smile was a predator's. Well, journalists and janitors. Always sticking noses where they don't belong." Maya backed up, clutching her satchel. "Run, Ethan!" Rivers' men grabbed her arms. She thrashed, kicking, screaming. "Ethan!" Rivers leaned close to Ethan. "Touch the drive again, and your boy won't last the week." He dragged Maya out, her cries muffled down the hall. The closet fell silent, only Ethan's ragged breathing left behind. Later that night, on a balcony overlooking the glowing city, Lena Voss stood with a glass of wine, watching Ethan approach. "You look pale," she said without turning. Ethan's voice was raw. "They took her. Rivers has Maya." Lena sighed, swirling her wine. "Alexander always did enjoy his loyal dogs." Ethan's fists clenched. "You knew about this, didn't you? The chambers, the trials." Her eyes flicked toward him, sharper now. "I suspected. My brother built his empire on whispers, blackmail, buried scandals. Every deal, every merger, someone silenced, someone ruined. I left before it consumed me. Why come back now?" She smiled faintly. Because Clara deserves better, and because I'm tired of hiding. Her gaze hardened. Alexander thinks he owns everyone, but he doesn't own me or you. Ethan's voice cracked. He owns my son's life. Lena stepped closer, her tone almost tender. Then let's make sure he doesn't. She slipped a keycard into his palm. Sub-level clearance. Use it wisely. Back inside, Alexander stood before the crowd again, raising his arms like a prophet. Tomorrow, we unveil Seraphim to the world, the cure to end disease, the dawn of immortality. Applause roared, glasses lifted high, but in the shadows of the gala, Ethan clutched the keycard, Clara clung to his sleeve, and Julian Cross whispered promises of contracts that would turn healing into warfare. The Empire was tightening its grip, and somewhere in a steel cell below, Maya Torres screamed into the dark. The gala ended in glitter, but beneath the champagne glow lay screams, shadows, and secrets. One drive of footage now threatened the balance of power, if it could survive the night. The basement halls pulsed with red light as klaxons screamed overhead. Ethan gripped Clara's hand tightly, dragging her through the smoke-filled corridor. Gas hissed from vents, the air sharp and burning. "Keep your head down," he shouted, voice hoarse. Clara clung to him, coughing, eyes wide with terror. Yet she didn't falter. Behind them, the echo of boots, soldiers in black tactical gear, rifles raised, closing in. They burst into a steel chamber where glass walls lined the edges, each holding chambers of the unconscious. Ethan's eyes scanned, desperately, until he saw her, Maya, strapped to a chair, gagged, monitors hooked to her arms. Rivers stood nearby, calm as ever, pistol at his hip. "Going somewhere, Hale?" His smile cut through the smoke. Ethan pushed Clara behind him. "Let her go, Rivers." Rivers tilted his head. "Why? So she can run to the press? You think one journalist will bring this empire down?" He chuckled darkly. "You don't understand the scale of what you've stumbled into." Maya strained. Against her restraints, muffled cries spilling through the gag. Rivers raised his pistol, then a sharp voice cut through the room. "Enough." Dr. Victor Cade stepped out of the shadows, lab coat stained, eyes hollow. He looked not at Rivers, but at Ethan. "This isn't his decision, it's mine." Ethan's blood froze. "What are you talking about?" Cade's gaze flicked to Clara, then back. "Your son, Noah." Ethan's throat tightened. "What about him?" "The treatment he's receiving," Cade said evenly, "is not standard chemotherapy. It's experimental, a Seraphim derivative. His remission, the chance he clings to, it comes from the very project you're trying to destroy." The room seemed to tilt. Ethan stumbled forward. "You're lying." Cade shook his head slowly. "I wish I were, but it's true. Without Seraphim, your son dies. With Seraphim, others will die. That is the equation." Ethan's vision blurred. Rage, horror, hope tangled inside him. Rivers smirked. "Now you see. We're not monsters, Hale. We're saviors. Collateral damage is the price of progress." Ethan's fists trembled. He turned toward Clara, who stepped forward, her small voice piercing the chaos. "My mother said the same thing," she whispered. "She said people shouldn't be experiments. She tried to stop it. That's why she's gone." Her eyes shone with tears, but her voice was steady. "Please, Ethan, don't let her die for nothing." The words cut deeper than any blade. Alarms blared louder. Gas thickened. Soldiers forced their way into the room. Helen Ward appeared suddenly. From the side door, a fire extinguisher in her hands. With a cry, she smashed it into the nearest soldier's helmet, sending him sprawling. "Go, Ethan!" she shouted. The room exploded into chaos, gunfire sparking against steel, glass shattering, bodies colliding. Ethan lunged for Maya, ripping the restraints free. She coughed violently but nodded, clutching her recorder. "They can't hide this anymore," she rasped. Ethan turned toward the security console, glowing at the far wall. Rivers fired at him, bullets sparking off metal. Ethan dove, rolling, slamming his hand onto the keyboard. Come on, come on!" Screens blinked to life. Live feeds of the Trials, the chambers, the recordings of Clara's mother begging for help. Ethan routed the feed upward into the building's main network. Above them, in the glass-walled boardroom of Voss Industries, executives gasped as the monitors on the B wall suddenly flickered. Instead of profit charts and glossy presentations, the footage played, screaming patients, convulsions, death. Clara's mother whispering her final plea. Gasps turned to shouts, phones came out, cameras recorded. At the head of the table, Alexander Voss rose slowly, fury radiating off him. "What is this?" he bellowed. At his side, Lena Voss stepped forward, arms crossed. Her voice cut sharp as glass. "The truth, brother, your truth." Back below, Rivers realized what had happened, his face twisted with rage. He lunged for Ethan, but Helen intercepted, throwing herself into his path. "Not this time," she hissed, grappling with him. Rivers roared, slamming her into the wall. But it gave Ethan just enough time. Maya clutched her recorder, pressing the transmission key. "We're live. Every outlet, every channel. The world is watching." Rivers' face drained of color. In the boardroom, chaos erupted. Executives shouted. Security scrambled. Reporters outside caught the feed as it leaked globally. Julian Cross, the government liaison, paled. "Alex, you said this was contained." Alexander's jaw clenched, but he forced a calm smile. "It is a smear. Lies. Manipulation." But Lena shook her head, stepping between him and the board. "No. It's proof, and you've lost." The boardroom doors burst open. Federal agents stormed in, badges flashing. "Alexander Voss, you are under arrest." Gasps filled the room. Cameras flashed wildly. Back in the lab, soldiers hesitated, orders crumbling as comms lit with frantic voices. Rivers snarled, pulling his pistol again, only for Lena to appear on the monitor feed, looking directly into the camera. "This ends tonight." Her betrayal broke something in him. He lunged, but Helen, bleeding from the earlier blow, grabbed his arm, wrenching the gun aside. The shot went wide. Ethan charged, slamming Rivers into the glass chamber. It cracked, hissing steam. Rivers fought back savagely, but Clara's voice rose above the chaos. "Stop!" Everyone froze. The little girl stood tall, trembling, but unflinching. Her voice rang clear. "My mother died to stop this, and I won't let you take anyone else." For the first time, Rivers faltered. His grip loosened. Ethan ripped the pistol free, aiming it, but instead of firing, he tossed it across the floor. "No more death," Ethan said hoarsely. "This ends with truth." Federal teams stormed the lab minutes later, dragging Rivers and soldiers out in cuffs. Victor Cade stood silently, surrendering without resistance, his eyes haunted. Maya, weak but alive, clutched Ethan's hand. "You did it! We did it!" Clara pressed into his side, whispering, "Thank you." In the boardroom above, agents snapped. Cuffs on Alexander Voss. Cameras crowded closer as reporters shouted questions. He smirked, eyes glinting with malice. "You think you've won?" His voice cut through the chaos. "You've no idea who I answer to. I'm just a piece. The real power." Agents shoved him forward, silencing him, but his words lingered, poison in the air. The building shook with chaos. Outside, news vans gathered, crowds forming, the world learning in real time the truth of Seraphim. But in the quiet corners of the hospital, Noah still lay in bed, frail and pale, his future uncertain. Ethan knew the battle wasn't over. The empire of glass and steel had cracked. Secrets bled into the light. A father had chosen truth over miracle, and a daughter's voice had broken silence. But shadows still lingered. And Alexander Voss's final warning promised the war had only begun. The empire fell in a single night. Federal raids stormed through Voss Industries like wildfire, shredding its polished veneer. Trucks loaded with confiscated servers rolled into the night. Scientists in handcuffs filed past flashing cameras. Executives who once strutted in arrogance now hid their faces under jackets. The media called it the Seraphim scandal. Stocks plummeted. Shareholders screamed. Government task forces expanded their reach, unearthing decades of buried trials, payments, and silenced victims. Alexander Voss sat in a federal holding cell, smirking at the chaos he once orchestrated. Yet his words lingered. "You've no idea who I answer to." And somewhere in the storm, Julian Cross, the smooth-tongued government liaison, vanished. No arrest, no resignation, simply gone, like smoke escaping through cracks. The message was clear. Voss had been a king, but not the throne. For Ethan Hale, the world didn't collapse with the empire. It shifted, tilted. For the first time in years, silence felt like peace, not danger. Clara, no longer a mute shadow, began to speak again, slowly, carefully, her voice fragile like glass, but growing stronger each day. At first, she whispered, only to Noah. In the hospital room, she leaned close and told him little stories about how the sun looked through her mother's hair, about the songs her mother once sang. Noah, pale but smiling, clutched her hand as though it anchored him. To this world, Ethan watched, throat tight. For so long, he had believed Noah's laughter would fade forever. Now, even in sickness, hope flickered again. Victor Cade sat opposite Ethan in a sterile government office weeks later. No lab coat now, only a plain suit, his hands folded like a penitent priest. "They've given me a choice," Cade said softly. "Work under oversight or rot in prison." He exhaled, eyes shadowed. "Perhaps both are deserved." Ethan's jaw clenched. "And Noah?" Cade slid a file across the table. Inside, government seals and approvals stamped over clinical trial documents. It's experimental, yes, but safer. Not seraphim, not weaponized. His voice cracked, barely audible. "If I must spend the rest of my life correcting the sins I created, then let it begin with your son." Ethan studied him for a long moment. Hatred still burned, but behind it, the faint ember of gratitude. "Do it right this time," Ethan whispered. Cade lowered his gaze. "I'll try." The world devoured Maya Torres's words. Her exposé, The Silent Playground, tore through shelves and headlines alike. A thunderclap dressed as ink. She wrote of the empire built on secrets, of children silenced, of the janitor who refused to look away. The book climbed to #1 in a week. Talk shows clamored for her presence. Survivors of Seraphim's shadow stepped forward with trembling voices, finally unafraid. Maya never forgot the moment Ethan had torn off her gag in that lab, risking everything. At the book's dedication, she spoke into the microphone, voice trembling yet firm, to every child who was told their silence was safety, and to the ones who listened anyway. Cameras flashed, audiences wept. The world remembered Clara's small voice breaking through. The storm. Clara began to heal in ways no one expected. At first, her sentences were halting. Nights still brought nightmares, tears staining pillows. But Ethan sat beside her bed, Noah's laughter echoing in the next room, and each dawn made the shadows retreat a little more. She began drawing again, not of syringes and masks, but of skies, playgrounds, and faces she trusted. Once, she looked up at Ethan as she finished sketching. "It's you," she said softly. The paper showed a figure holding the hands of 2 children under a wide, warm sun. Ethan blinked hard, unable to speak. Noah, fragile but stubborn, endured his new trial under Cade's oversight. Side effects came, but less brutal than before. His hair thinned, his body weakened, but his spirit burned with quiet defiance. One afternoon, as Clara read to him, he grinned through pale lips. "When I get better," he whispered, "I want to play soccer again." Clara smiled. "Then I'll play too." Ethan stood in the doorway, watching the 2 children who had taught him what resilience meant. For the first time in years, he let himself dream of futures instead of endings. Yet even in healing, shadows lingered. Julian Cross's name surfaced. Occasionally, in whispers, rumors of sightings in Geneva, in Hong Kong, in nameless conference rooms. Files went missing from government archives. Witnesses recanted testimonies under sudden, mysterious pressures. Ethan felt it like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. The war wasn't over. It had only shifted to higher ground. But for now, for this fragile window, he let himself rest. Weeks later, Ethan walked with Clara and Noah to the place where it had all begun. The playground stood quiet at dusk, swings swaying gently in the evening breeze. The same rusted chains, the same damp earth. Clara hesitated at the entrance, staring at the swing where she had once sat, silent and broken. Ethan knelt beside her. "We don't have to be here if you're not ready." She shook her head. Slowly, she walked forward. Noah followed, weak but smiling, dragging his IV pole like a stubborn soldier refusing to quit. They sat together on the swings, 3 figures against the orange sky. For a moment, silence wrapped them, but it was no longer heavy. It was peaceful. Clara turned to Ethan, her voice clear, steady, alive. "Thank you for hearing me when no one else would." Ethan swallowed hard, his hand resting gently on hers. "You saved us, Clara. You saved more than you'll ever know." The camera of the world pulled back, past the swings, past the small playground, past the city still buzzing with scandal, and the narration, quiet but sharp, rose to linger in the air. What would you risk, your family or the truth? In silence, sometimes lies the key to everything.